Hello, everyone, and happy Sabbath. Can everyone hear me? I want to make sure everybody can hear me. I hope you can. I just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening for our allergy awareness presentation. Um, I'm gonna give a opening prayer real quick, and then after our opening prayer, we're gonna go ahead and dive into our program. There will be a time later on before we end this for questions, if anyone has any questions. So, right now, everyone, let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for everything that you have done for us, for every obstacle that you have and continue to bring us through. We thank you for your many mercies and for your grace. I pray, Lord, that you would be here in the midst of us as we continue your Sabbath day with learning about some of the food allergies that affect many of the people that we know, and also some of us here who are on this um, Zoom chat. We thank you, we praise you, and we glorify your holy name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, I am going to turn things over to Ayana for a quick intro before our video. Hey Ayana. Okay. And she'll be with us in one moment. You're on mute.
Hi guys, mini meltdown over here. Sorry. So basically, I don't know how many were at the program that Ashton and I did last year, but we just kind of wanted to give you guys an introduction to who we are and why we're doing this. Basically, I don't know how many know, but Liam, my son, has food allergies. And that kind of threw me into the whole world of food allergies. He was diagnosed at 10 months old when he had got some hives from eating some scrambled eggs. And then 2 weeks later, ended up having full-blown anaphylaxis from eating something with dairy in it. He ended up having to get an EpiPen. 911 was called. We had to take an ambulance to the hospital. It was a very big ordeal and threw me into this crazy food allergy world. So we just wanted to kind of let people know what it entails as far as having food allergies, things we have to look out for, myths about it, just basically give more information, because the more information people have, the more they can keep people like Liam and Ashton safe from their food allergies, because it takes more than us. It takes other people knowing, especially like little things about cross-contamination, like if somebody touches something that Liam is allergic to and they touch a table and then Liam comes behind that person and touches the table, he can have a reaction, and things like that is things that we kind of want to make people aware of. So that's basically the introduction to kind of a little bit what we're going to do here, show like a video from someone else's perspective on it. But I think Ashton was also might have given a brief introduction to herself as well. Are you? Yes. Okay. So I'm done with mine, and then Ashton can give hers.
Yes, just to piggyback off of what Ayana said, um, where we have a brief video coming up, and her son does have food allergies, and I have some as well. But we want to make sure that everyone understands that food allergies are not the only thing that affect people. It's also food sensitivity. Some people get those two things mixed up. And I think we'll talk about this later on. It might touch on it in the video if I remember correctly, but I wanted to make the point that just because something is vegan does not mean that it is allergen free. Um, because there are a lot of different components when it comes to what people are allergic to. So we'll go ahead and go into our video now.
Thank you for being here and listening to my personal story. I am a big foodie. I come from a family whose entire world revolves around food and the end-to-end dining experience, which means to them from the appetizer all the way through the dessert. And some of the best memories in my life have occurred over an amazing meal. But some of the most haunting and horrific memories in my life have occurred because of an amazing meal. I'm going to tell you a little story. One night back in 2008, I was out to dinner with a group of friends after having flown in from an international business trip. I spent about 2 weeks in China and Hong Kong. And we were out at a restaurant that we've been to many times before, and we ordered a bunch of dishes, and we're just having a really great time catching up, and I'm catching up on all the gossip. And somewhere in the middle of that dinner, my body started to feel super weird, like it was tingling and really itchy. And my first thought was, jet lag must be kicking in because there were no visible signs of anything wrong. But I decided to pop a Benadryl, which I always keep in my purse, to stop from itching and keep on enjoying my meal. So after a really long dinner and a lot of great food and wine, I finally decided to call it quits and head home, because now both the jet lag and the Benadryl were actually quickly putting me to sleep. So about 2 hours after I went to bed, I was very abruptly woken up because I had the worst chest pain I have ever felt in my entire life. My chest was super tight and it felt like it was on fire, something that I'd never felt like before. And I was starting to have a lot of difficulty breathing. And so my initial reaction was, I had too much spicy food and red wine at dinner, and maybe it was like acid reflux. And I was so groggy from the Benadryl that somehow I crawled out of bed, and I turned on the light in the bathroom, and to my horror, I saw that my entire body was covered in huge red hives, from my scalp all the way down to my toes. And seeing this monster in the mirror, I did the immediate thing that I knew how to do at that time. I started hysterically crying, which was a really, really bad idea because it also caused me to hyperventilate in addition to having horrible chest pain. I mean, I was a complete and thorough mess. And as the chaos around me began, I almost felt like I stepped out of my body and I was just staring at myself literally die. As I frantically ran around to try to find my cell phone and all of my luggage and dial 911. And this was the 18th time in my life that food has tried to kill me. So we learned that I had food allergies and asthma when I was around age 4. I was eating a sandwich of Skippy peanut butter and Welch's grape jelly, and I instantly broke out into hives. But I also went into anaphylactic shock. So that means that my throat started to swell up really quickly and I couldn't breathe. And that would have killed me had I not made it to the ER in time. The thought that I could be allergic to food, it completely crippled my parents. They had no idea what that meant, and they had no idea why my other sibling didn't have this problem. And the icing on the cake was when the doctor told us that there is no cure for food allergies. The only way to prevent a reaction is by strict avoidance of the food item. So, I mean, that sounds easy enough, right? Don't eat whatever food is going to make you sick. But it's not necessarily that easy. And in my lifetime, I've been to the ER 18 times due to my food allergies, 4 of those times in a full-on anaphylaxis condition. Now, in my first allergy incident, we learned that I had a severe peanut and tree nut allergy. So as a family, we had to come together and we had to figure out some kind of plan on how this kid was just gonna eat. Because it felt like peanuts and tree nuts were just like everywhere. When you get that kind of news, it feels like they're just falling down from the sky and you have to duck so that they don't hit you. And you know, life as I know it was super complicated now. My parents knew they couldn't be with me 100%, and that most people didn't know about food allergies at the time, let alone how to deal with them. And it certainly wasn't a topic that we were talking about all the time. So in order to survive at that young age, the #1 thing I had to do was I had to learn how to cook. But I so did not want to do this. I wanted to be normal and go to school and hang out with my friends after school and try and be cool. I so did not want to hang out with my mom in the kitchen learning how to chop onions. And I really would have died if anybody found out that I was allergic to food, figuratively speaking. But when you can't eat a lot of the same things that all the other kids can, it's not something that you can hide. And, people find out. And at that young age, kids can be really cruel. I remember this one time where, kids in my school were finding out, and somebody called me Scooby-Doo. And still to this day, I'm not quite sure how a peanut allergy and Scooby-Doo fit together, but I was super pissed because I would have rather have been Scrappy-Doo than Scooby-Doo. So if anybody knows how they come together, please let me know. But, unfortunately, I did spend a lifetime of being the weirdo, being bullied, and being called the nutty girl because I was allergic to food. And it made no sense. But as I got older, like the empire, I struck back. And I also, with the help of my parents and my doctors, I also spent a lifetime of learning how to cook, educating myself about this subject, researching a lot. And when things didn't make sense, and a lot of times things didn't make sense, I asked a lot of questions. And somewhere along the way, I did find an inner voice to speak up for myself and start telling people that I had food allergies and I needed help with eating because I just wanted some semblance of a normal life. Because trying to figure out why this is happening to over 15 million Americans who have food allergies is completely mind-blowing. A food allergy reaction sends someone to the ER in this country every 3 minutes. So that means during this talk, 3 to 4 people would have already gone to the ER due to their food allergies. Food allergies among children in this country have increased about 50% between the years of 1997 and 2011. So why? Unfortunately today, doctors still don't know 100% what causes food allergies, but they believe it's in part genetics and in part environmental. Now, our genetics don't necessarily change that quickly, but our environment actually can. And there are many theories out there as to what the cause of food allergies is that are being researched, discussed, and heavily debated. And one of the things that you hear about almost on a daily basis in our news stems around our Western diet and just what's going on in our food supply in this country. So food in the United States is probably some of the unhealthiest lab-altered foods among any country in the entire world. Our Western diet is hopped up on saturated fat, sugar, and salt. And these types of processed food items now contain GMOs, which are damaging our immune systems, making us more susceptible to developing allergies and other illnesses. Now, study results actually showing that junk foods like these are actually altering healthy gut bacteria in our bodies, which we essentially need for digestion, and it is replacing it with harmful bacteria, which is just opening up the floodgates for things like allergic reactions, antibiotic resistance, toxicity, and cancer to proliferate through our bodies. So this is just one theory, our Western diet, amongst all the other theories out there, but this is definitely a leading contender as to a cause for food allergies. Now, back in 2008, when I had that allergy incident, it was definitely the worst allergy incident I've ever had in my entire life. And I spent about 28 hours in the ER until they were ready to release me because they had to make sure I was breathing normally and for my hives to just subside. So when they sent me home with like a shopping bag full of medication, and they sent me on my merry way. And the next morning I woke up and I had hives all over my body again. And I panicked. I was breathing okay, but I panicked and I speed dialed my allergist and I popped a bunch of the pills in that bag. And I went back to the ER because I had no idea what was happening. And good thing was I was fine. Somehow got about my day. went to bed, and the next morning after that, I woke up with hives all over my body yet again. I woke up with hives all over my body every day for the next 1 year of my life. So if you just think about this for a minute, for 365 days, I was waking up with huge red welts, like this big, from my scalp all the way down to my toes. Like there was no place that was not covered. And I had to now go about my life. I couldn't just live in a bubble. And I had to go to the gym, or after that, I was going to my office, or I wanted to see my friends and go to happy hour, or God forbid, I was actually going to go out on a date. I mean, the word nightmare does not even suffice for all the emotions that you could be feeling at that time. And if anybody actually did go out on a date with me during that time, I truly say namaste and thank you to you, because I was horrendous. So it was such a horrible time for me, but I was convinced that this was not my food allergies, because I just spent 2 weeks traveling through China and Hong Kong, eating the amazing food with no incidents. And the day I come home, I'm in the ER almost dying. So I thought it was like a bug that bit me or something I caught on the airplane. And I went to every single doctor in the Bay Area that would see me, from primary care to allergists to dermatology to OB-GYN to infectious disease. And they all concluded that this was a really severe food allergy incident, which created a lot of toxins in my body, and those toxins could potentially take a lot of time and a lot of medication just to be released out. So it was at that time that I really started thinking, am I actually allergic to food, or am I allergic to what's being done to it in this country? Now, wherever we end up on what the exact cause of food allergies is, and I do hope we get there in my lifetime, it doesn't change the current end result. Food in this country is making us sick and is even killing us. 10 years ago, I was the only one at the table that had to have like a 15-minute conversation with a chef at a restaurant about my dietary restrictions. But today, almost every time I dine out, there's someone at the table with a gluten intolerance, a shellfish allergy, garlic annihilates their system, lactose intolerant, doesn't eat cilantro, or on some special diet. I mean, this is San Francisco. Everybody here is on some special diet. And it's as if our entire dining landscape has changed since I was a kid. And now it's almost abnormal if you do not have a dietary restriction like a food allergy. Now, my story may be about food allergies, but yours could be about disease like diabetes or weight issues or just overall healthy living. So I do want you to be aware, and I want you to care about what's going on in our food supply in this country, because this is what's going on in our food supply. Research shows that living in this country for a decade or more may actually raise the risk of certain allergies, food and environmental. So I want you to care, because some of you may walk out the door today and develop food allergies. I want you to care because deciding what food you put into your body is your choice, but not being given the full disclosure of what's in our food is a crime. I want you to care because we all need a voice that stands up for and is more involved with the ethics of food in this country. So a lot of people always ask me, how do you do it? How have I managed to survive all these years? So I have a mantra: stay safe, live healthy, and eat well. And I think it's really great for everyone to actually have a personal mantra. And everything I do in my life kind of revolves around this. Because to me, wellness is not just about the food that you put into your body. It's about the body, mind, spirit, and emotions all aligning together for an existence with intent and purpose. And my intention surely has never been to feed my body for nourishment, and then a minute later, I could be dead. So I had to come up with a bunch of steps on how do I do this, and I'm going to share my top 3 with you. starting with the stay safe part, which is cooking real food. So I did kind of get over myself, and I spent the time in the kitchen with my mom, and I learned how to cook. So I'm super blessed. I have two parents that are both amazing cooks. And I would so love to see them in like a Chopped Mom versus Dad series at one point, because that would be really awesome. And they grew up in an Indian culture where the mom went to the market every day and she cooked all of the meals. And their food was really simplistic. It was vegetables from a garden. It was lean proteins here and there. It was whole grains mixed with a lot of herbs and spices. So cooking essentially became my baseline foodie plan, and this style of cooking became what I did. And I did that to improvise when I needed to, and so that I can survive. And I learned a lot of things about cooking, which I didn't know, that kind of transcended my entire life. So cooking was not hard. I think we psych ourselves out about it, but I actually spent the time to figure out and learn how to do it. And once I did, I realized how quickly I could pull things together. And I also realized that I could make whatever dish I wanted or whatever meal with just 5 or 6 fresh ingredients. It didn't have to be anything canned. It didn't have to be anything processed or boxed. I actually like going to the market on a daily basis and just walking up and down the aisles and seeing what they have and then pulling it together for a great meal. And I also learned how social it was. When you grow up with a lot of food allergies and you're dealing with the whole bullying situation, friends situation might not be in your favor all the time. And my parents are really social people. They had dinner parties, 4 or 5 nights a week. So there were always people in our house, and there were people in the kitchen, and they were just having a great time and laughing and having, eating great food. And so spending this time in the kitchen with one or both of my parents and talking and laughing and kind of learning life lessons and being passed down generational cooking techniques was just priceless. Cooking is the best investment that I made into my health, and I do hope it's the best investment that you will decide to make into your health. So living healthy, asking questions about your body. So my body is definitely my temple, and I want to know what's going on with it, and I want to treat it well. There's no nook or cranny left unturned. I don't want to be in the dark about anything going on so that I know what to actually do with it. Nearly 1/3 of us think that we have food allergies. We just don't know for sure. And it's not really fair to someone who could help you, like a chef in a restaurant, if you yourself don't know if your issue might be a sensitivity, an intolerance, an actual allergy, or just plain in your head. Take the time and visit with your doctor and get the necessary testing that you need to figure out what's going on with your body. I do this about every year, every 2 years, because the goal should not be for us to keep on restricting food items when we live in a time of just amazing culinary artistry out there. But it really starts with you, with the help of your doctor, figuring out kind of what's going on. The eat well part. So I do love to eat, and I love to go out and try all the new restaurants. So advocating for myself. I have so many items on my do not eat list, and I don't expect anybody to memorize it. So I created this super cool food allergy card that is laminated, and I carry one in every single bag that I own. And on one side, it lists in grave detail all the things I cannot eat. And I'm sure you are wondering how I am possibly going to eat lunch today. But I always keep a sandwich in my bag, just in case. And the other side has a super gratuitous photo of myself, because people need to know what I look like if they're actually cooking for me. And I created this card because I want to be able to enjoy the same dining experiences as all of you. So handing this card to a chef in a restaurant and having them put it on the line and stare at it when they're making my meal so that it's safe for me to eat is priceless. This card is translated into many languages because I travel internationally, and it gets so much love everywhere I go. Not just because of the super gratuitous photo of myself, but because it actually starts the conversation between me and the person who's making my meal, so they know my limits and bounds, and so a lot of times I end up kind of helping them with how to help me. And so I end up with this not only meal that's safe for me to eat, but something that's incredibly delicious. And I've had so many chefs who have just seen this as a wonderful challenge and then made something for me that's just not even on the menu, and I'm just so grateful for that. So those are my top 3 things. You know, it's interesting, in 2015, somehow everything has come full circle for me. I used to be alone in my struggle with food. I no longer am. This is now a problem for all of us to create a food supply that is healthier for people and for the planet. We shouldn't let back and let others dictate to us what we should be eating, but rather we should be pushing the limits for a food supply that does not make us sick, so that we can all enjoy amazing dining experiences, which only give us the best of life memories. The one thing that I will say that I think I've always had going for me, besides a ton of luck, is a really great attitude about the whole thing. I mean, everybody has something. Having food allergies is just my thing. But I knew a long time ago that I would never let this run my life, and I will not let it ruin my life. And I did learn that I may not be able to control every situation nor its outcome, but I can definitely control my attitude and how I deal with things. So for every day that I get to still be on this earth, I'm very thankful. And I spend that time to advocate for a food supply that is healthy for us and that doesn't make us sick. And I do that for myself, I do it for all of you, and I do it for all the generations to come so that they don't have to deal with the same issues that I did growing up. You all have a voice, and your voice really does matter. So I hope that you use it to speak up for a food supply that doesn't make us sick. Thank you.
Great and informative video. Thank you so much for everyone watching that video. And that's just one really important take on what a lot of people nowadays are dealing with. My particular food allergies developed when I was 12. It started off with one thing and then it built up upon itself more and more. And it was something that a lot of people didn't understand at the time, and I myself didn't understand a lot of those things at the time. But with that being said, there is additional information there was a page up here, I don't know where it went, but there is additional information on one of our slides that should pop up again soon about food allergies and how it right there it is, food allergies and how the coronavirus, COVID-19, might impact some of the things that people with food allergies are going through, especially with the food supply and how hard it can be now to find what you need, since a lot of the shelves are just sometimes empty. I had that frustration myself with going into the grocery store and trying to find some of the dairy-free items that I depend on at home because I have a severe dairy allergy, amongst other things. But that coronavirus, the link or the link that helps you to understand the difference between coronavirus and food allergies, because some of the symptoms could be the same, and it'll also help you to understand a lot of the struggles that people are going through food allergy wise with this thing looming around. So I encourage everyone to take note of that link. And now I will turn things over to Ayana, who has some information about labels.
Okay, so I just brought a couple of things that are in my house to kind of show you what the different labels look like, what we're looking for when we're trying to do food allergies, make sure nothing contains like Liam's allergies. So I don't know if you can really, oh, there you go. So with this one, it kind of at the bottom in bold says that it contains wheat and soy, which, but they're not always bold like this. So you always want to read the full ingredients list when you're looking at ingredients. Cause like, for example, this one, let's see. This one has a, well, you can't hardly tell, but this one is not in bold. It's the same print as the rest of the ingredients list. So you just want to make sure you're reading full lists when you're looking at them. And then there's also, they're required to put what's called the top 8 allergens, which is dairy, egg, fish, shellfish, peanuts, tree nuts, and soy and wheat. But they don't have to put any other allergens. So if people are allergic to corn is a big one. Sesame is the next one, a nice one in line. Those people, those allergens don't have to be listed and they don't have to be broken out. So it's a little harder for people who have allergies that are outside of the top 8. Let me see this one right here. And so then there's things like this that is labeled as vegan, but it contains wheat, which you might not be able to see, but right here it says it contains wheat. And for somebody who has a wheat allergy, that's not safe for them. And then a lot of people sometimes will associate gluten-free with being allergen friendly, and gluten-free doesn't mean that it's not allergen friendly, because it can still have dairy, eggs, all types of other things in it. It just be void of gluten. So we just want to, like, you know, be on the lookout for those kind of things. And there's some kind of specialty brands that'll look out for it. But that's kind of something we just kind of wanted to show you, that you just want to make sure you're reading the entire label every time. And some of them will have like may contain statement on it, which means that they're made on either in a shared facility or on the same equipment as things containing allergens. That's not required by law, so all of them don't have it. So sometimes if you're real sensitive to that kind of thing like Liam is, I end up having to call companies to see if the items are made on the same equipment. And we have to do it all the time because he had a safe potato chip. He used to be able to eat Lay's plain potato chips. And then at one point he started reacting to them and I couldn't understand why. And I contacted Lay's and they're made on the same line. It's like their sour cream chips and things like that. So he can't have those potato chips anymore just because they're made on the same equipment as like the sour cream chips, because he has a dairy allergy among other allergies as well. So that's just kind of something we wanted to show you guys. And then me and Ashton wanted to open it up to if anybody has any questions about anything that we've said, anything that was said in the video, or anything just about allergies in general that you might want to ask us.
So Ayana, I have a question. So when we refer to labels, how do y'all know when they're telling like the legit ingredients? Because sometimes you can have things out here, like for instance, it could say no gluten-free, but then it can end up having them ingredients in there. How do y'all know like what's the right information to trust when we looking at labels and ingredients?
Well, as far as the top 8, legally they have to, except for meat products that are anything that's regulated by the USDA, they don't have to legally put it on there. So stuff like meat, we wouldn't know for sure if it's in there. Stuff like, oddly enough, lotions, toothpaste, those kind of things, they don't have to label for that. But those people with food allergy can still react to lotions and toothpaste and makeup and hair products. And those things don't have to be labeled with the ingredients in it. So for us, it's hard. Sometimes it's trial and error to try to figure out if those ingredients, if those are safe to use for us. As far as foods are concerned, it's regulated by FDA and it's in the top 8 allergens. They have to put that on there in clear language. So it doesn't have to be bold, but it just has to be somewhere in the ingredient section in clear language so that you know one of the top 8 allergens are in there. So that should be okay to trust, but they don't have to tell you if it's in the same facility. So that's what makes it so hard for us, because that's not information that they have to give. And some companies won't give it because they're not legally required to.
Oh God.
That was a good question. Any more questions?
I have a comment. I've been noticing lately, like with like fast food, on their actual menu, they will like list the ingredients, and they're also starting to list like the sodium content and stuff. And so I think that like she was saying in the video, that they are basically, you know, what we're eating is a crime to not list stuff. And I think that they are making strides with like trying to inform people of everything that they're actually eating, whether or not it's, you know, because of your sugar, your sodium, your, you know, your allergies and everything like that. So I think that it's starting to be more like on a priority list of like people, you know, what people are starting to kind of like make make it more, important. Like this is something that we need to like be focused on. So I did notice that.
Yeah, they are starting to do that. I mean, more can definitely be done, but they are taking, I've noticed, 2 steps in the right direction. Some companies are starting to be more transparent, but more transparency. We need lots and lots of transparency, not even just for people in the food allergy, like you mentioned, other people that are diabetic, people that need low sodium diets for a plethora of reasons. We need transparency of our foods. And a lot of things, when you first come into the food allergy world, one of the first things they tell you to do is to try to stay away from processed foods as much as possible. And you want to stay to whole foods. You want to stay to fruits. You want to stay to vegetables. You want to stay to like rice and potatoes and things like that, because the more processed it is, the more likely it is to contain an allergen, and also in terms of the other elements to make you sick. So that's just something we should all just be doing, just even people without food allergies, trying to get more to making things from scratch and eating more whole foods versus the processed foods that are available to us in the stores.
Look in the chat. Looks like somebody has a comment in the chat.
I saw that Jackie. Yeah. All right. So that's definitely an important thing. So, what was commented on was the fact that adults need to listen to children when they tell you that they cannot have a specific type of food. That's very important because sometimes adults will just brush off a child's comment and say, "Oh, you're being picky. You can eat this." But the fact is that if a child says that they cannot eat something, don't give it to them. But even a step further than that, I don't feed people's kids without talking to the parents first and letting them know what it is that I have and asking if their child has an intolerance or an allergy to a food beforehand. Um, and that goes to say also cross contamination is another very big point to make, especially in congregate settings. And I think that the coronavirus helps us to understand now, helps everyone to understand what we mean by cross contamination. Those of us with severe food allergies have been aware of cross contamination for a very long time because some of us will get sick at even the slightest minuscule iota of food that we can't have touching something that we are allowed to eat. Um, and that just means that we have to think about, well, if we're offering someone food or if we're having a dinner party or if we're having potluck, we need to be making sure that we are using separate utensils for serving. We need to make sure that we are aware of everything that went into the ingredients um, that make up whatever food it is that we're serving. So, when this is all over, when the coronavirus is all over, and we eventually end up going back to regular gatherings um, at church and otherwise, we need to be mindful that there are these things that people are allergic to. So while you might not want to share all of the secrets to your grandmother's secret recipe, you should probably think about the people who you could potentially be getting sick. And some of our food allergies are lethal. So share those ingredients. Any more questions?
I did want to piggyback a little bit on what you said, that also some people think that like if they make a salad and they put walnuts in it and you say you're allergic to walnuts and they take the walnuts out, that it's okay for you to eat. And it's not. Once the walnuts are in there, if someone's allergic to them, they can't have it. Even if you pick them out, the proteins are still in the food and it can still make them sick and make it even kill them in worst case scenario. So you don't want to just pick something out if somebody says allergic. If somebody's allergic to dairy and you put cheese on their sandwich, you can't just take the cheese off. They can't have that sandwich, period. And so that's just something else to kind of keep in mind, because I've heard people say, oh, they can just take that off. They can't. if they're allergic to it, they can't just take it off or pick it out. It still will be in there and it still will give them a reaction.
Are you aware of all the allergies that your child is allergic to, or at some point in the future, will he become allergic to other things?
You can always get allergens. There's some things that are more likely to be allergic to, like some people who are allergic to peanuts are also allergic to other legumes because it's the same family. But unfortunately, the testing for food allergies kind of tests to make sure that's what the reaction was, but it has a high percentage of false positive. So you don't want to test unless you've had a reaction, because say you didn't eat something ever before in your life, you tested, it says you're positive, you may not be positive. You want to kind of test after a reaction. So unfortunately, the way most people find out they're allergic to something is they eat it, they have a reaction to it, then the allergist will test you and say, yep, that definitely was a reaction, and now you avoid the food. Because the tests, both the blood test and the skin prick test, have about a 60 to 70% false positive. So that's why they test to confirm a reaction versus test to tell you what you're allergic to, if that makes sense.
Is this open for comments or are we just listening?
Yes, it's open for comments. You can make comments and ask questions.
Okay. The point you made about being allergic to different foods and somebody taking it off and figuring it's okay. I hope that everybody's really listening in, because that happened to me. I'm actually physically allergic to pork. My throat swells up. My urethra is like I can't breathe then. And I'm on EpiPen for it. And years ago, that happened to me. And I had to be rushed to the ER because they figured they moved the pork off there and it was okay. Because I didn't see no pork when I ate it, but it had been on there and my throat swelled up and everything. So when she's saying that, it is very much true. If somebody tells you they're allergic to something, you can't just take something out and give it to them. You could wind up killing somebody.
Yes, that's true. Thank you for sharing. So that's definitely true.
Ayana, Shalana and Miss Jackie had put a comment in the chat.
Let me see.
Trelena's comment actually goes to what Brother Rodney was saying. Sometimes things are ingredients are listed by their technical name and not what most of us would assume. So whereas Rodney is allergic to pork, there are a lot of things that contain gelatin, which is a derivative of pork. And gelatin, it's in a whole lot of things. So we have to be very careful. I mean, people with food allergies have to be very careful about the things that they're eating when they're going out to establishments, or whenever they're basically, if they're eating something that they have not prepared with their own two hands, it's a risk. We're always going to be taking that risk if we're eating out or eating food that someone else has prepared for us, which is why this is such a serious topic, and why we're trying to educate as many people as possible about something like this to try and prevent tragedies from happening. Anyone else have any more questions they would like to ask?
I have a comment.
Okay.
Is it okay to talk now? No. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, this topic definitely resonates with me. My son has allergies to walnuts and pecans. And so we learned about the allergies at Ebenezer when he was 7. And then many years later, it was almost very, very deadly for him. I ate something that I thought it was okay, not realizing that it had, I believe it was walnuts that were grounded up in the burger. And so, as Adventists, we use nuts to make up, just to get that meaty kind of taste. And so, anyway, unbeknownst to me, the nuts were in the burger. But when my son ate it, instantly he had a reaction to it. And I had no idea that it was nuts in it. No one said it was nuts in it. And it was just a very, very horrible experience to go through that with him, because it resulted in him, we almost lost him. And it was really nothing to play around with. And so, of course, we're very mindful, making sure that he doesn't have anything with pecans and walnuts. However, we never did like the full index just to see what it is he's allergic to. But it's a very, very serious thing. So I am glad that you all are raising the awareness, because it's a very real thing. And I don't think that people take it very seriously, because they just assume that because they can eat certain things, that everybody else can eat certain things. And that's definitely not true. We have to make certain that there's EpiPens. There was a time when you couldn't even get an EpiPen. It was on back order, and we just had to wait. And that was not long after he had that episode where he had the seizure. So, so good job, you all, just raising awareness, because again, it is a very, very real thing. And so awesome with the information that you provided.
Someone made a comment on Facebook. It says that the schools will take the information, the allergy information, from the kid, I guess, during registration, and then they may not translate it to the teacher. So it's like, or to to the person, the lunch lady, or whatever. So it's like they take the information, but it might not be utilized.
And that is very true. I can attest to that because Lucas, my son, he's allergic to fresh cut pineapple and he has sensitivity to avocado as well, just like myself. And even though I've shared this information every single year on the registration form where the medical section is, every year I've shared this with the school. It's still something that I have to make sure that I overshare with every single adult that he is in contact with. Because when they have events at the school and they put all the kids together and then they have, little snack times or little movie days, they give the kids, snacks and stuff. They don't break it down on an individual level and say, okay, you kids with allergies, come on over here and let's, see what you can and have. They feed everyone on a mass level. So over communication to the point of sometimes being annoying has been something that I've had to do. I communicated to his teachers and his parents that's something we need to do, communicate with teachers, not just the teachers of the class that your child is in, but all of the teachers. So all of the teachers at my son's school, they already know that they'll be hearing from me right around every single holiday because they usually do stuff. They already know. Chris's mom is going to be reminding them that he has allergies to this, this, and this. Office, they already know. I'm going to be reminding them he has allergies to these things. And I oftentimes bring his snacks myself because I don't want him to feel excluded. I'll just tell them right off the bat, don't feed him anything. I'll drop off some snacks that he can have just for him himself. So that's one way to go about things, just over communicate. And yeah, and someone else had a comment about washing your hands and not, okay, yeah, so washing your hands falls right in line with that cross contamination thing. Like how we're going through the coronavirus now, they tell us to continue to wash our hands because we can transfer bacteria and things from one place to another, just like with food allergies. Wash your hands because you can transfer allergens from one thing that you touch to the next. And just like with Ayana's son Liam, he is touch sensitive to allergens. And another point to make from a comment that someone made is also like keep your distance. Don't kiss people or children, even in love. You know, you kiss them on the cheek. Don't do that because you don't know if they're allergic to something or not. This has happened to me before. You know, um, my husband, he's not allergic to dairy, and years ago when we first met, um, you know, he was all about the pizza and stuff like that. And one day he kissed me on the cheek, and I broke out completely. Um, Red rash, my asthma came on, and I have something called eosinophilic esophagitis that's brought on by my allergy, which is where, with my worst food allergies, my esophagus constricts, and the white blood cells rush to that area, making it inflame so that nothing can pass through either way. Nothing can come up and nothing can go down. And it's very painful. And there's no real cure for it. So you just have to kind of push through it. So be careful um, about cross contamination. You know, just be mindful that other people might have an allergy to something. Any more questions at all? All right, well, if no one has any other questions, I'm just going to go ahead and lead us out in a closing prayer. All right, everyone. Dear Lord, I would like to thank you for allowing us this time to gather together to learn about the things that affect our bodies, to learn about the allergies, the food allergies that are around us, so that we can learn how to help better protect ourselves and those around us. Please, Lord, continue to pour out your grace on us all as you continue to do. We thank you for your patience, your kindness, and your love. Um, Please, Lord, forgive us for any wrongdoings that we have committed, and help us on our journey of life each and every day. In your holy name we pray. Amen.